All right, and Ian Trottier here, Discuss Your Truth, bringing back a longtime guest, coming up on 5 years here doing the show. Well, at the end of the year, start of the next year anyway, 22 will be 5 years of doing the show. 5 years goes by very quickly, and how different the world is today than it was when I started. I am back remotely doing shows here, pre-recorded. We'll be going live here again shortly, but pre-recorded in a remote studio in the United States. Yes, but anyway, it was in Miami. So bringing back JP Linstroth. It's been a while since JP Linstroth has joined the program. We'll see what he has been up to. Again, he has a PhD from Oxford and teaches in South Florida. Now. Recently, I was at an event in Dallas. You can check out the stuff that Mike Flynn has been doing, Sidney Powell. You can look at some of these issues regarding the potential voting fraud that took place in the 2020 election. And look, again, I try to stay out of a political alignment, if that will. And what I have simply done over the years is aligned with the Constitution. So freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, or the kind of the basic freedoms that I work to retain, if you will. And wow, holy cow, all three of those are under massive attack. Isn't that interesting? Cancel culture is a major issue. Oh boy, wow. Censorship on the internet is an incredibly challenging topic in many arenas. I myself have fallen victim to the censorship and cancel culture in regards to a website that I put up called stopcommunism.net. And within 10 days, the site had been taken down, banned from running on the host, yola.com. And some other things. So, no, I have not been kicked off of Twitter, although I had to create a different handle. Real _Ian Trottier is the handle. Anyway, so discussyourtruth.com, I believe, is live. It's running. Ian Trottier is running on a new host, using new hosts. So let's bring in, without any further ado, let's bring in JP Linstroth now. We're going to dial him in on a Skype call here. JP Linstroth coming in here. So we get him to answer. Doing a little bit different things. I've switched things around here on the program. Just let him know that I'm calling. JP? No. Okay. Let's try him again. Oh, all right. Give this another shot. Let's try JP again. Okie dokie. And oh, he did. Okay, so we'll call back. Maybe he did answer. Let's see. Let's try it again. This is Ian Trottier for Discussions of Truth. All self-finance, folks. So if the stuff that I address makes sense to you, then you want to contribute, I invite you to do so. Donation button at iantrottier.com. IANTROTTIR, running into iTunes, Spotify, via anchor.fm. Okay, again, trying to reach JP via Skype. I'm calling him from Skype. I'm calling his phone on Skype. And that's where we may have the issue. Of course, 2 minutes have gone by. Let's see. Let's think he's not answering. usually try things slightly differently. Let me send him a message. What I want to do. The thing is I want to call him from Skype because that allows the recording device. I usually do things a little bit differently. So I'm usually using a software that enables both. Okay, it enables both. Let's see here. The use of the phone but right now I'm not doing that. The phone and the laptop. Let me try this. Do. Here we go. JP Linstroth. This should work, folks. This should work. Ah.
Hello?
JP.
Hey, Ian.
Nice to connect with you, sir.
Great to connect with you as well.
Welcome back to Discussion of Truth. And it has been a while. Boy, I have been all over the place, JP, and things have been incredibly busy. And I appreciate you returning to the program. We for listeners that maybe are familiar with the Linstroth reports, we try to do those every month. That has been a slip on my half, and I think it's probably been, JP. Has it been a year since you've joined the program?
Could have been, yeah. Thanks for having me back. I have to check. I don't really remember when the last time I was back.
I think one of the last shows that we did was with the school, right? The Black Lives Matter issues, wasn't that in West Palm Beach?
Correct, Black Lives Matter issues, and I had a couple of school board people on. Well, not school board, but somebody from the African American Studies.
Right.
School district, right, Palm Beach County.
So, update listeners, JP, on what you have been up to.
So I just found out I have a new contract for a new book.
Wow.
And the book is called Politics and Racism Beyond Nations, a multidisciplinary approach to crises. And that's coming out hopefully this year. I have to get them a draft by October, and I've already found out that some pretty well-known folks want to read it and endorse it, and so got that going on. And then, of course, I've been writing about what's going on in Brazil quite a lot, the genocide there, and then also with COVID in general, I guess. I mean, one of the articles I wrote recently as well was on what's happening in Colombia, and but mostly been writing about what's going on in Brazil, but have been also writing about what's going on here with Black Lives Matter and things like that as well.
So you are covering a wide range of topics, and you are not addressing the names of the people that are supporting you. Are these politicians?
Oh, sorry about that. So one of the guys is an academic. His name is Douglas Fry, and he is well-known peace activist, writer.
Great.
Writes on peace and human societies. He's going to write the foreword to the book. Have another former student, Patrick Hiller, who was on your show.
Oh, yes.
Who's going to write the preface to the book. And then I have a bunch of people who are going to review the book, including Drew Gladney, who's wrote things like Making Majorities, but also has written on China and Western China and things like that. And also David Sutton, who's pretty well known in food anthropology. So 3 well-known anthropologists and some other former students who are going to review the book.
Congratulations, JP. And same publisher, new publisher?
New publisher, Palgrave Macmillan.
Aha. That's incredible. And where are they based? In New York?
So they're based in New York and London and Switzerland.
Excellent.
And production companies in India.
Why are you laughing?
It's a big. I'm laughing because there's such a big conglomerate that I was so surprised that the production companies contacting me from India, they have to sign the book in Switzerland, and my editor is in New York. So there you go.
JP, you're doing good things, buddy. And again, congratulations. So let's get into. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so are you. You're doing great things too. So.
Look, I always go after the controversial. You know that, JP. I ruffle feathers. That's
good. That's
the objective. And boy, I mean, look, I started this in 2016 in Wynwood. And officially the program started in January 2017. But I'd begun the research is kind of like what I do after looking into the Zika virus of 2016. And whoa, how the climate has changed so dramatically, especially with this COVID-19.
right.
Pandemic and there's so many different topics of controversy, whether it's censorship or it's now critical race theory, whether it's cancel culture. We have a very dynamic, controversial landscape now.
Well, I was really fortunate to be on your show from the beginning, and I want to thank you for that as well. And so it's been great. And we haven't met up yet. We need to meet up, but one of these days for sure. So
yeah, I'm outside of I'm broadcasting it remotely, but I was. Yes, we do need to. I was, as you know, I was recently in Miami for a number of months. And then I was in Dallas, and I've been since we've last discussed. I think, as you know, I was in Washington a couple of different times. I've been in Oklahoma, and I've actually been in Texas now twice in the past probably 3 or 4 months. I've been in that state now twice.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Wow.
It's anyway. So yeah, I've been picking things up. Let's get into. We can go to different areas, but let's get into this tax protest in Colombia. You're opening up this article, and for listeners to understand, counterpunch.org is JP. Do you write weekly for Counterpunch, or is it monthly?
I try to put something out every month.
Okay.
At least once a month with them. Sometimes every couple weeks, but mostly every month, and mostly recently on stuff about Brazil. But if you want to talk about what's going on in Colombia with the tax stuff, or the protest there, had been ongoing since April 28th. And several people have been injured. Amnesty International testifies that There's a lot of mistreatment, including sexual violence, reports of people disappearing. The state has treated the protest like it's FARC-driven, which is the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, the old Marxist armies, National Liberation Army. So they try to shut it down like that. I'm trying to put a bad spin on it. But really what happened was that you have the president, Ivan Duque, trying to raise taxes on average people and on average goods is when the protest started. And it was because of that, because of raising taxes, and also it was because he wanted to increase the GDP after COVID because of the pandemic and the lockdowns. But the tax proposal would have lowered the threshold of people being taxed with a monthly income of $684, which is, it sounds absurd, but 2.6 million Colombian pesos is $684 in the end. So the translation of pesos to dollars is kind of craziness. But they, I talk to people there quite a lot because I know quite a few Colombians, and the whole country's in a mess. So,
and it's what's basically driving. Is it this? What's basically driving that chaotic atmosphere?
I think a couple things that people are fed up with. Fed up with the government not listening to average people. They don't believe the government's representing them. They believe that this tax proposal, which didn't go through, by the way, with the tax proposal, they believe that the government just wanted to tax the average people and not, I mean, it basically helps the rich people in the country, basically, by not even addressing the income inequalities there. So you have corruption, inequality, and poverty, which are the main reasons why people are protesting. And you have a lot of young people who are at university who are protesting it. But the police have been heavy-handed, using the same kind of police force that they would use against Marxist rebels and organized crime. The United Nations Human Rights Division stated it was alarmed over the situation. I think things have calmed down a little bit, but protests are still happening in different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. So, why did you choose? Because this is the first time that I've known you to write, certainly on something outside of Brazil in South America. Why did you choose Colombia?
Mostly because I know some people from there, and I was like, this is a mess, and I wanted to highlight what was going on there. And I just thought that, well, I wanted to educate more people about what's going on there.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have a lot of educated people that don't necessarily know what's happening in different parts of the world, but are pretty educated and pretty well read, but don't necessarily read as widely perhaps as I do, or check the news like for different stories like this, right? So, and I was just looking at a recent Reuters piece a couple of days ago that said that the protests have lost steam. And by the way, indigenous people have gotten involved in the protest too. But the sentiments are still there, and so if something happens again, that certainly it could lead to a national strike again. But the strikes and blockades have cost, according to this Reuters piece, $3 billion. Cost the government $3 billion.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons why I did write about it is because I felt sorry for like the average people that are getting, screwed by potential taxes that don't necessarily benefit anybody. And if you're taxing basic foodstuffs, you're going to hurt the poor people rather than anybody else. And that was the reason why I kind of wanted to write about it, I guess.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And it certainly doesn't provide for a very mobile or upward integrated economy to grow the middle class in that sense.
Right.
Doesn't sound.
So the middle class is being squeezed if there is one, and so what would be more equitable to have a graduated income tax there, which is never going to happen probably because we have the wealthy controlling the government, the economy, and so on. So
let's get into the other article, which is really more of your expertise typically, which is Bolsenaro and Brazil. And the piece that I'm looking at that you sent me, the Brazilian Senate will question Bolsonaro on COVID-19 response. Update us here and I know that there's been some more further attacks on the indigenous peoples in Brazil. Update us here what's happening in Brazil.
So I wrote another piece recently called "The Genocide We're Allowing in Amazonia," and the Brazilian Senate will question Bolsonaro on COVID-19 response. So going back to that piece on May 3rd, going with the one you just mentioned, there is a Senate commission, Comissão Parlamentar de Inquérito, which is a Senate commission basically investigating the president, Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, on how he's handled the COVID-19 crisis, right? So the question is whether or not that's going to hurt him as a candidate for the presidency, which I believe he's up in 2023.
Okay.
So the question is whether or not any of these inquisitions or Senate queries, Senate commission, will have an effect on his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
So far, it doesn't seem like much is happening as far as his popularity waning, although what I would like to see is a more moderate candidate run for office, not so much Lula, but maybe the governor of Sao Paulo maybe would be a better candidate. It's kind of the middle of the road.
So who is tell us about, is this Lula that you're saying?
No, Lula, the former president of Brazil, who was Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, was the former president of Brazil, who was jailed under Bolsonaro. Corruption, and then has been recently released, and now is vowing to run against Bolsenaro in the next elections, which the Supreme Court said he can do, I think. And so he's a very popular figure, but very controversial as well. So 2022 will be I said 2022. It's 2022 will be the next presidential election.
Yeah.
For the country, and Lula is expected to run. Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. Lula is his nickname. That's why I said Lula, Ian. He's expected to run. So we'll see. It's a big mess. But my concern really are the indigenous people who are getting the bad end of the stick with the Bolsonaro administration. Jair Bolsonaro has been very outspoken against native peoples in Brazil, saying that the Indians have too much land, for example, which has allowed for illegal mining and illegal logging on native lands. And especially worrisome are the incursions on, for example, the Yanomami territory.
Yeah.
You have 22,000 illegal gold miners coming onto their land. The reserve that they have is the size of Portugal, so it is quite large. But these are the last remaining these people on the planet. Really very unique people. The Munduruku, who is another group that I studied in Brazil, also have problems with illegal gold miners in their reserves, their territories. And then you have in Ecuador the same thing happening, for example, among the Guarani. The Guarani are indigenous people and well-known people in Ecuador. So it's not only limited to Brazil, but we're talking about really all over lowland South America, where you have gold mining prospects and prospects for illegal logging in all of Amazonia, wherever they're. So it's happening in Venezuela, it's happening in Peru, it's happening in Ecuador, lowland Bolivia as well, I guess you'd say.
So
not so much.
Who are the miners? Are these international companies? Are these national companies that are illegally going into these reserves or territories and not compensating properly? What's exactly happening there?
So the illegal gold miners, are they controlled by corporations? I don't believe they're controlled by corporations, but I believe they sell the gold to the international market. They have all sorts of equipment and airplanes and helicopters and equipment to be able to go in, but I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'd have to read more about how it actually works, but I think that maybe the companies pay for these really poor people to go there to invade these territories, and then they extract the gold out. But you have these operations that are literally like building cities in the middle of the jungle, Ian, that are just craziness. If you look at the pictures on The Guardian, for example, in The Guardian newspaper, or even in the New York Times, you can see that there's total destruction of riverine areas in the Amazonia where these gold miners have gone in and using mercury to lift the gold out of the waterways, which is really destroying all the fish and the forest area in the region. You can imagine how poisonous mercury is, and other poisons getting the gold out of sifting the gold out of the rivers there.
Interesting. And how is the other hot topic there is the coronavirus, the Bolsenaro coronavirus response. Update listeners on how that has gone.
So the main thing, as far as I can tell, is that even though that the president himself had contracted the virus, right? So he's always downplayed the virus as a little flu, a gripezinha, saying it's not a big deal, and that, you shouldn't worry about, why are we worried about this? Yes, old people should be worried about it, but not average people. And I should say, Ian, I got the coronavirus too. I got it in March.
Okay.
I know that we didn't talk.
Yeah, I didn't know you'd had it.
Yeah, I had it. I had it after I got the first shot of the Moderna the vaccine.
You got it after?
I got after. What happened was that my brother and his family were visiting on spring break, and he brought it with him, and I got it from he and his family. So it's kind of unfortunate.
Interesting.
But I got it after the first vaccine shot of Moderna. I think having had the first shot, I think I was more protected if I hadn't had it. Anyway, that's on a personal note, but I'm okay, thank goodness. But anyway, the President Bolsenaro of Brazil has downplayed the coronavirus and has basically said it's not a big deal, that people shouldn't be worried about it, and basically is also turned away getting more coronavirus shots, COVID-19 vaccines for the country. He's turned away vaccines for the country. And so Médecins Sans Frontières, which is the French Doctors Without Borders, has noted that the Bolsonaro administration has been negligent in the way that it's handled the coronavirus. And one of the lead people at Médecins Sans Frontières, Christos Christou, stated, I've been very clear in this, the Brazilian authorities' negligence is costing lives. There's no coordination in the response. There's no real acknowledgement of the severity of the disease. Science is put aside. Fake news is being distributed, and healthcare workers are left on their own. That's a quote from one of the Doctors Without Borders people. So Brazil has one of the worst outbreaks of coronavirus in the world. And India is, I believe, second to the United States. Brazil is now third. But in any event, what I talked about in the article was how lackadaisical the Brazilian response has been to the coronavirus, and why I thought that the World Health Organization, as well as the United Nations, should be also investigating the Brazilian president's response or lack thereof.
And JP, why is he downplaying the severity of the virus? It's hard to know. Like, he thinks that because his own personal thinking is that because he's
average healthy people should not worry about it. He's downplaying it because he thinks that it will hurt the economy. There to be lockdowns, but so what happened, Ian? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had somebody call in. Anyway, what happened was that the governors of like states like Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo have had their own lockdowns against Bolsonaro's federal government, because Bolsonaro did not want to have the lockdowns. But they've had lockdowns this past year in contradiction to Bolsonaro, and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor against the Brazilian president's administration. So I think the big worry for him is, will it hurt the economy? There's something to be said for that, because I'm sure you've noticed it as well. I mean, even in our own economy has been hurt quite a lot by this virus. I've noticed businesses have gone out of business because of the virus, and not trivial at all, really. But I don't. He hasn't given mandates for social distancing. Like, for example, the Supreme Court had to tell him to wear a mask, which I thought was kind of humorous. That they were going to fine him if he didn't wear a mask. If he didn't wear a mask. Just things like that, which is just the worst for me. Is like how he's handled the native population and not getting the native population vaccines quick enough, and downplaying it. But what I should say too is that the gold miners, it's not only the fact that they're invading indigenous land and wreaking havoc on the environment, but they're also bringing with them COVID-19 and malaria, Ian.
Interesting.
Which has just totally wreaked havoc on the population. And in the 1990s, and 1980s, 1990s, in the Yanomami Reserve, you had a genocide happening because of a gold miner invasion then, where you had 1,000 Yanomami die, about 14% of the population, the Roraima region, being affected by these illegal gold miners then. And what happened was that the government sent in the military to protect the Indians against the gold miners. And a lot of anthropologists like myself and a lot of people who know about the situation think that the government should do the same thing, send in the military, because the national police is not strong enough to thwart these attacks. And what happened recently in the Munduruku land, Ian, was that the gold miners were literally attacking police stations and burning village huts and going after native leaders, trying to assassinate them. So they're very quite violent as well. This is really quite serious. That's why I call it an ongoing genocide, because you have a potential of really conflagrating into something much larger, into something with the disease, COVID-19 that they're bringing, and also the malaria that they're bringing as well.
And historically, Bolsonaro has downplayed the destruction of the Amazon, whereas he has not. Isn't this correct, JP? He has not. He's not been active in passing laws to help protect it.
Right. He's saying, why should the Indians have so much land? And he wants to not. He wants to not increase any indigenous reserves anymore. He made a statement on May 14th, about a month ago, that it's not right to criminalize the gold miner in Brazil. não é justo querer criminalizar o garimpeiro no Brasil.
Mm-hmm.
It's not right to criminalize the gold miner in Brazil, which is a ridiculous statement because the gold miners were responsible for the genocide in these territories, right? And so you have the president making these statements, which is giving the gold miners carte blanche, and illegal loggers, I should say as well, carte blanche to do what they want and act with impunity on indigenous land. And we literally have Indians dying because of this. So
Yeah, right.
it's not anything to just get going there to get gold out. Well, they're also killing Indians. And you had a massacre in 1993, I believe, and in the Yanomami territory, where several native peoples were massacred because of gold miner attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and JP, what's the
Hashimo massacre was called. Sorry,
Hashima massacre?
16 Mami were murdered. Go ahead. What is the what?
Give us the quick background here, JP, on the former president that was jailed, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Why was he imprisoned, JP?
So he was in prison for corruption, and so I mean I don't think he's totally innocent, Ian. I mean I think that I'm sure that he was involved in corruption, or alleged corruption. I should say alleged, right? So on air here. But he was involved in alleged corruption. But there was a whole corruption scandal involving was the car wash scandal, Lavata. Can't remember. Javata Lava. Oh, Operation Car Wash. Yeah, Lava Jato. Operação Lava Jato. Operation Car Wash, resulting in several arrests and convictions and 9 lawsuits against Lula. This was Lula was peddling his influence in development banks, and also with the oil industry, and so it was a money laundering operation. But so Lula went to prison for corruption, and then was recently released because they said that his conviction was prejudiced against him, and so on. His handpicked successor, Dilma Rousseff, was impeached. I don't know if you remember that, but Dilma Rousseff was impeached.
Okay.
His handpicked successor. So, yeah, I mean, the alleged corruption from Lava Jato, which is the Operation Car Wash, call it in English.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
So he.
I don't know if I explained it very well.
No, that's fine, and he's permitted to run again. Which, not to get into this because we've got to wind down. I got to bring on Dennis Kucinich, but I wanted to get an appetizer on your new book for listeners. But quickly, and obviously in Brazil, if he's able to run again, then the law permits that. The law permits for a former president to run again. I would assume, obviously, since he's doing
Correct.
it again.
Yeah, correct. He could run again and be elected. And he's quite popular among the poor because basically he instigated programs like Bolsa Familia, which is like a social welfare program to bring people out of poverty. That's why he's so popular among the populace, Ian, because he had this social welfare program to give money to families to keep their children in school, to give them a basic stipend, like a living wage would be called, as you might know it, or in English,
Sure.
you would call it a living wage.
Right.
But that's why he's so popular across the lower classes in Brazil, because of the Bolsa Familia, which the socialist administration brought in. But see, a lot of people that I know don't like him at all because they think that they keep saying, here Brazil will become like Venezuela if he becomes president, right?
Right.
That's the word. Brazil will become Venezuela, that he's way too left, he's way too socialist. We can't have that if he becomes president. And so that's why you had a lot of people voting for Bolsenaro because of that. Because it's just seen as too far left. So,
I
but
see.
Bolsonaro is really far right, and he's like
Sounds like it.
military right on the side of the old dictatorships.
Yeah,
That's how right.
Oh, I see. Okay, so even more extreme, perhaps, than Donald Trump.
Yes, I would say
Much
yes.
more.
I would say right. I would say on the right of the right.
Right, a radical right.
Yeah, radical right. I would say radical. Like it's okay to bring back the dictatorship years, right? There's some people that are okay with that, but a lot of people are afraid of that too. So I think it would be good to have like a moderate. Yeah.
Absolutely. JP, give an appetizer here on this new book that you're contracted and will be putting out. Give an appetizer here. The title sounded very interesting.
So the title is Politics and Racism Beyond Nations: A Multidisciplinary Approach to Crises. And where I'm going with it is looking at immigration policies, looking at nationalism in relation to genocide, looking at terrorism, and looking at trauma from genocide and racism as well. And then the last part of the book is about peace and empathy and love, actually.
Right.
And so the book is really quite huge topics, and what the multidisciplinary aspect of it is that I'm looking at nationalism and ethnicity, for example, just give you an example, from not only a social anthropological perspective, but also from a cognitive biological perspective. In other words, that we are predisposed to think of the other and othering people by the way our brains work, right? Through neurochemicals like oxytocin or the amygdala, which is the fear center in the brain. And we all do this, right? I mean, you could be like a Yankees fan and look at somebody with a Boston Red Sox hat on and thinking, oh, they're a Red Sox fan, I don't like them, right? Your brain automatically does this in others people and others othering people in such a way that it causes rifts in society. So I'm trying to look at it from a perspective of conflict resolution as well.
Wow. That's incredible, JP. Outside of that book, JP, what else have you been up to? And then what else have you been up to? And again, for listeners, please tell them where they can find your work.
So all my work is on Amazon.com, JP Linstroth, and one of the books I wanted to come back on to talk about your show, which came out this year, was my book Epical Reckonings, which won the Proverse Prize, International Prize, for 2019. Was recognized. It's a political poetry book, and it talks about different subjects in the early 21st century, mainly about human suffering, but, various topics from 9/11 to Katrina to the murders of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown to the mass shooting at Mary Stoneman Douglas High School, to the great migration crises from the U.S.-Mexican border to the migration from Syria to Europe, the Rohingya genocide, the civil war in Yemen, Abu Ghraib. So a lot of topics in there.
Wow. And where's my copy, JP? Come on. Great.
Give me your address after the show, and I'll send you a copy.
Great. So that's those are a lot of interesting talking points and very dynamic. So we will do that again, JP, and we'll tighten up this gap. Because look, the Linstroth report, we're really, you need to make a contract with me, JP. You need to make a contract that says, hey, I get this 1 hour with you each month.
Right.
You behold me to a contract, JP.
Good. Should hold your feet to the fire a little bit. Yeah. We should do that. No, I look, I always appreciate being on your show, Ian, and it's always a pleasure, and I appreciate it since the beginning. So for sure, we should do that when you have the time to slot me in. Would be great.
Okay, good. And I appreciate your continued support, ladies and gentlemen. JP Linstroth. You can find his books on Amazon, and of course, as you just mentioned, you are the 2019 co-winner of the Proverse Prize. Former Fulbright scholar as well, so incredible mind here. That we have been fortunate to have JP join us since some of the very early beginnings of the program. So JP, until next time, and we'll make it very soon here. Thank you for joining the program, sir.
Thank you so much, Ian. It's always a pleasure, and my best to your listeners. And thank you so much for all your support. And you can also find me on Counterpunch as well, aside from Amazon.com. So take care. JP
Linstroth, and he is JP. We've had JP again. We've had him. I've got to bring in Dennis right now. But we have had JP joining the program now for. I think we're coming up on 4 years. He's definitely been with me for over 3 years. Always been a great supporter of my program as I support the work that he's been doing. Certainly, a PhD from Oxford speaks volumes. Okay, so I will be back with the next program with Dennis Kucinich. Kucinich is the very briefly. Kucinich is a U.S. representative from Ohio, 1997 to 2013. Be right back with Dennis Kucinich.